Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. That's where I have mine. Mitch, I know we are looking for a working title.
It's about time, don't you think?
I know, but
come on, this is our 50th episode.
We didn't get in the episode yet.
So why don't we I'm just getting excited. I want a subtitle.
Okay. Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, take two. Mitch, I know we're looking for a working title, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater. We can make more money with a flop than a hit.
Why not? It made more money, right?
I know, there's a whole lot of swindling in there to make that happen.
What we need to do is have premium seats for our podcast. That's how we make money.
Yes.
That's what they did with the producers, the first show to have premium seat prices.
Well, we do have an audience link, and I'm thinking about turning it on, but as I've been paying attention to how we flow, we would have to be very much like we are on when we are on. But we end up talking for a half hour before we hit record. But anyway, this is The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And let's get down to business. This is our 50th episode. So I'm calling yay! Woo-hoo. So I'm calling this episode 50-50. If we had a digital raffle, you too could be the winner of $186.
That's the price. That's the price of a mezzanine seat.
I know, it's always like an odd dollar amount, and they took more money than they're giving. It's the 50-50.
It's those fees.
Yes.
That would be a saving grace for the theater if we just got rid of the stupid extra fees. It's not a convenience. Go to the box office. Drop the fees.
That is true. We were talking about this in the office at Exile. We have structured our ticketing so that there are no fees, or at least the customer does not incur any fees. So we've adjusted our pricing to absorb any of our ticketing fees and so on, as an effort to make our ticket experience a more accessible one. And so I think it works, but at the same time, in an effort to make things accessible, we are also acknowledging that these tickets do not cover expenses.
Of course not. You're nonprofit.
And so it's like, we have to remind people, while we made these tickets affordable, we are nowhere near what these tickets should cost, and it's just because this infrastructure is what it is. We're a lean and mighty organization. We have 3 full-time employees, and then everyone else is, part-time or contracted in some way. And it's just, we're just doing our best. It's like, how do we serve this community and also manage a shortfall, in the name of making our space accessible to the community. So it's such an interesting thing. But another thing I also realized is that there isn't really an infrastructure under us. We are still counting on a handful of people. I feel like all these companies are still counting on a handful of people, whether they are foundational grant makers or local donors. You go to most theaters here in Philadelphia and you see the same 10 names, and you're just like, there's got to be more people who care about the theater than just these 10 people. That doesn't mean we don't appreciate their support. It's just everybody shouldn't have to chase these 10 people just to keep afloat.
And for the purpose of whatever we might call nonprofit, including food banks for the homeless, and I mean anything that would be in the category of doing a service for the community. If that's how we think of the arts, why are we chasing anybody? And I'm one, by the way. I happen to believe in commercial theater, and I've worked primarily nonprofit, but that may be the reason. I've done tons of Broadway shows, which are commercial. I read every day from London how the West End was handled, which was government subsidy just for them to exist, and their prices were lower than our Broadway prices. Most Broadway shows, a lot of Broadway shows, started in the West End because they could experiment because the costs were less. But people still went home with a salary. And here we are, and now that the government in London has kind of taken post-pandemic, we're now capitalists, we're not socialists. They're taking all the money away from the theaters. The theaters are closing. They're bitching left and right. And they're trying to do the same thing we're doing. They're begging. They're begging the government. My problem isn't that there aren't people who can help us. We shouldn't be begging. There should be a value. Of course, there are theater companies that are worthless, right?
Yeah.
And you and I are going to be the only ones to determine who they are, right?
We won't name names.
No. But there are so many of them that actually have stayed afloat or gotten larger because they joined the commercial world of theater and they mixed nonprofit with commercial. Because they're making money from the commercial ventures, using it for the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Biggest example, New York Shakespeare Festival. When they got a chorus line, which was 100% theirs, there were no outside investors, and chorus line became as big as Cats or Hamilton. I will tell you, being one of the people in the office, a few years down the line, we had made $330 million profit, and we were a nonprofit institution. Had to go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said nonprofits are allowed to make profit. They just can't send it to anyone's private pocketbook.
Yeah, no individuals.
But that was determined. I was alive. That had to be sent to the courts because no one had ever done it before at that level. So what do? Do we ask Hamilton and Book of Mormon and Wicked and Phantom when it was around to chip in to help save the rest of theater because they're the ones who have investors and are making a ton of money? Except capitalism, they have investors. Can we force them to give money to somebody else? All the nonprofits are begging. So who is going to share? I don't know the answer.
I mean, and these are corporate.
Yes.
They're corporate. So, I mean, they're not necessarily going to think about how they can save a small nonprofit.
No.
And I don't know that it's necessary. Like this isn't a conversation. I don't know. Maybe some people are having this conversation going, they're making enough money, they should give to nonprofit theaters, but they're not nonprofit theaters. That's kind of like saying, I don't know, just anything else that has a nonprofit arm and a corporate arm. There's a corporate version of this as well. It's like, don't you see that the nonprofit is struggling? It's like, that's why we're not nonprofit. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, I remember there were early conversations, many companies who are fiscally sponsored by the likes of like Fractured Atlas and Art New York and, many incubators or art service organizations in their area that offer fiscal sponsorship. Those companies are arguably for-profit companies because they're fiscally sponsored by this organization and they may not have nonprofit status yet. And so even though they're operating with nonprofit in mind, they are actually for-profit organizations with a fiscal sponsorship.
And who knows when that became legal to take a corporate entity and just by associating with, and it is legal, by the way, it has been tested. So that is allowed. But it comes back down again to, what about a nonprofit hospital? What about an art museum? What about all these medical facilities that help children with cancer? People donate to them, but they have to go after them. It's a major operation. If you are a small theater, are we doing this wrong? Should this be that everyone, I remember at one point on tax returns, they used to have a check-off. Do you want your money going toward? And those people who did could check it off, and some of their tax payments went in that direction. I don't know, do we have to say this for the arts? For the most part, though, we know very few people would do it because they don't want to pay taxes anyway.
Well, what is kind of interesting is that many nonprofit theaters or many theaters tend to get their start from some kind of seed money. You know, whether it's like, I'm a recent grad from a theater program, and the only thing I can think to do with this degree is run a company or be involved in a company in some way. And mom and dad say, all right, we're going to sink more into this pipe dream of yours. And so they give seed money, $10,000.
Or, which has happened, I'm thinking the very first summer stock theater company I worked for on Martha's Vineyard was started by a bunch of students graduating from Ithaca College. And they were all friends, and they all got together, and I gather they all decided to work for whatever money they can get out of the box office. So they were working for free. They literally found a barn that somebody let them use for the entire summer, and they depended on the tourists at Martha's Vineyard that they would come to see it. And believe me, we were living in squalor. I was a musical director up there. So that lasts for how long? And how hard do you have to work to make that sustainable? And again, as you said, you graduate, and what else can you do? If nobody hires you to act in their program and pay you, you still want to do something in your field, and you love theater or music or whatever you're doing. So the question is, I guess because we somehow survive, people aren't trying to save us. We survive.
And I understand that, because I was just saying off camera how, off recording, how, we do have this mindset of like not airing our dirty laundry to the public. True. We do. It is tricky because, and we're not the only sort of community, I guess, that does this. It's like we are trying to put on a face of like, we have it together. Look, I can draft a budget. Sure, if you give me $1 million, I'll be responsible with it. I promise. Mm-hmm. And then that money comes in and you're like, okay, so now we have to pay John. And John's been waiting for 3 months, so we have to pay him now. And then it's like, oh, but this money is specifically earmarked for something. Like technically we're not even allowed to spend this money on anything but this. Right. And you're like, but this is the leap we take. We have the money right now. We need the money right now. It'll balance out later. What a broken system.
Well, and here's the other thing, you know how hard I try to support new writers. Writers, I don't know where they get this false notion that they can make a living writing plays. I guess Broadway fools everybody, because certainly when you have the hit, the money comes in, and then you may get a chance to write a second play. But for the most part, there are all these talented writers. They do end up going to TV and film, which is also difficult. But at least when somebody buys your script, they hand you $20,000. On Broadway, it's not, if you can even have someone read it, you have to lay out money to get it to them in the right format. You have, you express mail it, you wait for this. 9 months go by, they haven't had a chance to read it yet. And you're sitting around wondering, why am I doing this? And you're finding yourself a job waiting on tables. It doesn't, and by the way, boo-hoo to all these schools that don't explain this to their students. This is the industry you're walking into. It's okay. We love it. We will survive, most of us. But again, as almost every parent says, what's your backup plan? How are you going to make a living, right? It's a shame. We need a different system. We had the pandemic. We were supposed to be thinking about it. And we did not. Well, some of us did, but most of us did not.
And we have to be more creative. We have to. There are a lot of people doing this, but we have to tap into what's available to us today,
right?
That wasn't here before. And it's like, I've been saying, like, since the pandemic, I think artists are coming to the realization that there isn't an entity that is here to support them. Per se. If it comes down to saving the organization or just keeping money in someone's pocket, they're not going to prioritize keeping money in someone's pocket. Mm-hmm. If the organization's doors are closed or lights aren't on, they're not going to continue paying you if they can't keep all of that intact. And so, I think that every artist needs to figure out a way to, like, the same thing that we started doing when everybody had their own website. And then eventually Facebook came along, and Facebook seemed to be a suitable place for artists to put their headshots and examples of their work, because it was like designed to reach your friends and your in communities. And then the news got involved, and then then Facebook became a trash fire. And now we're kind of back to websites, but also we're leveraging all this social media to sort of build our brands. Like, there are a lot of actors who, they come into a production with their following, and they have followers for many reasons. Like, a lot of actors, especially in musicals, are like fit, and so they might be trainers on the side. They might do other things like that are really about just maintaining their best self, and then they can share that on social media. And then that gives them more attention, so that when they say they're in a show, maybe somebody will come see them. Those are kind of things that are really interesting that companies don't do enough of. It's like, how do we just engage people to just let them know we're here and we exist? Because honestly, the work doesn't stand alone. It is supported by the organization that is presenting the work. And so, like, the organization has to make itself known. It can't just hide behind the work.
But now we come to the death word of the day, marketing.
Marketing.
Because it still comes down to what has value and to whom.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when I see a great play or musical, it's wonderful. I mean, I happen to, totally be a nerd about this. However, to get a parent with 3 children working 2 jobs to see something that might change their life and add to the life of their children, mm-hmm. especially when it costs a lot of money, is near impossible, if not impossible. So next question is then, do you only videotape it, throw it on TV, and make it for free? What is the value? Well, I will tell you that as an adult, I have a limit as to how much I will pay to see a show. I don't care how good it is. The problem is what my limit is will not pay the bills for that show.
Yeah.
So now what is it worth it? And perhaps we need to come at this, and this is again a commercial way of thinking. So I'm just playing with this idea.
Mm-hmm.
If we say, okay, the most we can ask of anybody is $40 a ticket, even if there are 400 people in the cast all getting paid, and there are 270,000 lights.
Why do we select this show? It has 400 character roles.
Right, exactly.
And they can't be doubled up, says the playwright.
That's right.
And there are 7 of them.
And you need understudies, of course, for every single one of them. Right? So, and costumes. They all need multiple costumes, right?
Yeah.
Then, of course, we need a set that has a helicopter that comes in.
It must be a diverse cast.
Oh, absolutely. Anyway, and the women have to be able to play men. You better have at least 10% trans in there.
Yeah.
So you mix all this up.
And we're all clearly on native land, so if we don't acknowledge that.
All important. And meanwhile, of course, there are only 2 people in administration who are making sure the program acknowledges all of that and gets everyone's name spelled correctly.
Yeah.
And they're not getting paid anything, right? Because they have to also usher and hand out the programs.
And see, right there is a point. It's like, if you want every theater to check all of these boxes, I'm talking to the haters out there. If you want theaters to check all of these boxes, you have to acknowledge that an infrastructure needs to be in place, and that infrastructure costs money. So if you're also out there complaining about the organization not putting enough money into the art, you can't check all these societal boxes and just focus on the art. We have to do all of these things, and somebody has to think about that. Like, the difference between one person wearing like several hats doing marketing ad buys to like just to get impressions in front of you so that you know that we have a show coming is also, possibly managing the finances or making sure that they hire good staff or, also trying to train people. And we're interning with, we have interns who we're trying to show them how we're struggling to make things work.
Hold on. And this is a joke, but this really happened. And in the middle of all of this, the director, who is only thinking about his or her own artistic vision, calls you up in the office and says, I think I need an elephant on stage. And that's you're right in the middle.
It's called Water for Elephants. We need at least one.
That's a puppet.
I know.
I'm talking about they want a real elephant, and they're calling you in the middle of a rehearsal process, and your job is to, because somebody above you, some producer said, you can't say no to the director. So it's like, you put all this together and it has to fit into somebody's budget. And yet you're going, but I'm only getting paid X amount of money. And that director's getting paid 1,700, times its capitalism, right? And then the investors are going, how come we didn't make our money back? Well, because someone paid for an elephant. I don't know what or you just keep going through this.
We got the previews and we didn't know we needed an elephant. And it's not just the elephant, it's the elephant's trainer. And
let's talk the important part. Elephants do not fit through the stage door.
So now we have to rebuild the stage door.
There's no dressing room to hold an elephant.
So now we need to have a trailer.
Elephants shit every 20 minutes. So you cannot guarantee when they walk on stage that unless you have the trainer who knows how to get it out of them early.
Can you imagine the actors backstage? Bessie gets 17 breaks.
Yeah.
And she's the highest paid on stage.
Easily. I'm sorry.
Every time I see a little kid or an animal, I always say they're the highest paid in the scene.
Well, and we don't even want to go to kids. I did Annie Warbucks, By the way, and the reason I know about elephants is I worked at the Big Apple Circus, so I do know their habits. But and the story, for the hell of it, is a true story about a director calling me and asking for an elephant on stage. It's an absolute true story. So we go back, though. You're a little nonprofit, and of course, you want to bring attention to yourself. You want the audience to say, "I'm coming to see something special," and so you come up with a gimmick, which we all know is what everybody tells us we need, right? So if you don't have a star, then you have to have a gimmick, because the audience sitting at home with their kids is going, well, my kids don't know anything about this. Why am I going to spend all that money to see something they don't want to even see? They'd much prefer to go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And so I'll save up money for that because they know what Disneyland is. So how do we do this? How do we market something that isn't, well, certainly on Broadway, we have our version of Disneyland, which is Lion King, Aladdin, Book of Mormon, Wicked, Hamilton, and what else am I missing? The shows that go on forever. There may be one more. Those are the shows that can sell out on their own because, like Disneyland, everybody knows what they are and what they're about. So audiences come in from Indiana or California or Florida, and they're saying, hey, this is their version of Disneyland. I'm going to Broadway, and even if it's over, it costs me too much, so did Disneyland, right? And they pay it. Then what used to be on Broadway is we have these star-studded, sometimes, excellent dramas and comedies and musicals opening up and saying, I'm the new My Fair Lady, give me a chance. And there used to be a way to make enough money to keep those shows running. But now we have to market against the Disneyland shows. Again, we must remember that until A Chorus Line and Cats, no show ever ran longer than a few years. Ever, ever, ever. My Fair Lady, Sound of Music, a few years. That was it. That made room. You always knew something new was coming in. So now that we have shows that run 18, 20, 25, 35 years, we don't have need for new shows. We go back and see the shows that our kids already know about. So here comes the question to you, Mr. Executive in the theater industry. How do we make a new show worthwhile that a new audience member wants to come see it when there's all that competition all the time?
I feel like my thought is like I'm just trying to think about some things that, like, when they got their start, they sort of trickled in an introduction and then continued to just sort of give us breadcrumbs until they had what they had to offer. Like, I'm thinking about years back, a bar opened in town, and while they were renovating their space, they created three video clips, like YouTube videos, with local actors, with two local actors, and they were supposed to be like helping, bring this space to life. So they just have this quick conversation, and it's enough to be like, this thing is coming. And the video didn't really show anything about the venue, like what the venue was going to look like or anything, but it did draw attention. It was like, this place is opening. And they went as far as to create these YouTube sort of interstitials, like to promote that they are coming soon. And it was interesting enough to, like, say, when they open, I'm going to have to go check it out. But then you think about how a restaurant opens, or a storefront goes under renovation and they open. They do things like they paper the glass, they paper the windows, right? But they strategically cut out some spots so that you can peek in and see the progress. And we love that. Like people love walking by going, oh, they've done the fixtures. Oh, I like that paint. Oh, they're doing a mural. Like there's all these things like, and you feel like you have an inside track. So when the place opens, you can kind of go and be like, I've been watching them develop this for like several months. And you kind of feel a sense of ownership because you were with them as they were bringing this to life. And so I think for theater, we spent a long time being secret about it. Like we got a great thing coming. And we can't wait to share this with you, but we can't tell you much because we don't want to give it away. I talk about this all the time. They don't want to give it away, but they do want you to come see everything that they've done. And if you tease it out of sequence, it's enough to be like, wow, it looks like they put a lot of effort into this. I should come check it out.
Well, first of all, with no insult meant, there have been, we're in a different era because of social media.
I'm insulted.
But there have been shows that had commercials running for months ahead of the show opening. Mm-hmm. The question is whether or not that truly reaches the audience they're trying to reach.
Yes.
And so a lot of this is, since these marketing techniques are expensive, because you want to have quality video, you want to have quality sound. You also don't necessarily have your cast in place to do this. Yep. So now we have all these expensive problems that you can also mess up.
Yeah.
And it's also a different medium. If you were to tell me, I need you to put on, which by the way, we used to have, like a group sales presentation to convince the group sales agents to bring groups to a show that won't open for 3 more months. I would know how to do that with 2 days' notice. But you tell me I need a YouTube video that runs 90 seconds long, that sells a show, that's going to be on stage, but we don't have the set costumes or actors yet. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that, because I can bring in a videographer. Once I can tell them what it is they're videographing with their videotaping.
Well, here's also a thing that's interesting. People often reference movies and how movies have that build up before they get to opening. But the thing is, it's been in the can for about a year.
Well, not finished.
The film. Well, yes. The film wrapped. The film wrapped like a year ago, but it's being edited. It's going through all this.
That's the group sales thing. I said I know how to do that with the facilities and the people available, and because it's live, because I can bring people in that exist already. If you already have the movie in the can, even if it's not finished, you can bring in an editor and say, pick out snippets, put something together that excites me. That medium fits the medium you're selling. My thing is, we have theater. If we mix the mediums, which you can do, I'm not saying don't ever, it's expensive and it's hard to do correctly.
Yeah.
So is there a way to market theater live?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just using the films and the YouTube as an example. I just mean in general, like we're kind of doing it, but we're doing it in a stagnant way. Like we do announce that we have a show. We do announce that we've secured our cast. We do take some photos of the first rehearsal and things like that, but we're doing it in such a way that it's like mechanical and boring. It's not really like, I don't care about your rehearsal room. It doesn't look anything like the set or anything we're going to see. It's just, but I do think I think,
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I just thought something came to mind, and again, this is pre-internet, pre-video, pre-everything, and it's rare that I'm thinking of the success stories. Okay, there was a drama called Equus, which ran for 5 years on Broadway, won all the awards, and in my opinion, is one of the great plays one great American, well, actually it's British writer, but an American place. The initial marketing, they had a graphic designer who came up with a scattered graphic interpretation of what a horse done by Dolly might look like. And he made a poster for the show because that's what we used in those days. We had window cards, which were 22 by 17 posters. It was fascinating. What the producer decided to do with the ad agency, and was just a brilliant stroke. Of course, in those days, we also had the New York Times, in which everyone who went to theater read the New York Times every week. That doesn't exist now either.
Yeah.
But on this image, the first week they decided to advertise, they put the poster of the horse in the New York Times with no words. It didn't say it was a new play. It was in the theater section. It didn't say the name of the play. It just had the picture. The next week, they added the name of the show, which is Equus, and no one knew what that was.
Like,
The next week, they added one more element to it. And the show opened, 5 or 6 weeks after they started. You only have limited funds for marketing anyway. The show was, besides being a great show, everyone was talking about it because the image got you. You looked at all these other things of all these other shows, and it was the only one that was stimulating. But you never know that you have that. And of course, the image fit the stimulating storyline of the show, which was about a young boy who blinds 6 horses in a stable, and the psychological therapy he went through to understand why he did that. It was a very, this is not a comedy, but it was just astounding.
It's putting it together.
Thank you.
It's so smart. That's such a smart idea.
But that's why what you're saying is one element for some of the shows, right?
I'm not saying that as like the only way forward. I'm just using it as an example. The thing is, like with a film, the film has so much content that it can use to promote before it's ready to release its product. But take a nonprofit theater, for example, they may have their season planned, but like you said, they may have secured a cast in advance, or they're still trying to iron it out, or somebody backed out or something, and they're trying to get all of them together, and then they have to do a photo shoot. Like I had this conversation too. I was like, I want generic marketing, because if you're trying to put the actors in it and we don't have them yet, we're just going to wait for the actors before we can put our materials out. And the thing is, like, I'd rather have something that is like, the typeface that gives us sort of the aesthetic, and we put that out, and later we evolve, like our graphic evolves, and now it includes those things if we want to have them. But a lot of that stuff is what compromises the marketing for a nonprofit. Like, we're not sitting on our final show of next season's money right now. And so we can't think about like how to market this show. And then like, we all know better. We all know we're supposed to have several seasons planned, but now we're developing this mindset of that we're looking for the utmost of urgency. Like, there was a conversation yesterday that changed our 3rd show, and it's like, oh, come on. Like, what happened to, like, we've been working for years to get the rights to this show, and now we finally have it, so we're adding it to our next season. We're not doing that now. Some of us are chasing like what's currently going on in New York, and saying like, I got to be the first to get it here.
And again, and this is my stick up the butt. Instead of chasing somebody else's show, what are you doing to create the show that somebody else is going to chase?
And you have a development program. Why are you not prioritizing your own shows?
And all
this work?
And the trick is with all of and we started this discussion about money, and everything in the theater is about money and how do we afford this. The bottom line still comes in up. We're now talking about our purpose, right? And I know I have worked for free tons of times because the purpose felt right and I enjoyed it while I was hoping it would turn into money. So if that's since we don't have the money anyway, why not start with what gives us satisfaction and feels super creative? And hopefully you're talking about how to let people know what's coming up. Well, feel my energy. Feel my excitement about what it is I'm working on. Don't you want to maybe participate? Maybe say, oh, I'll go see that with you, Mitch. Or maybe I'll take my friend and give it a try. You know, of course, now we still come back to how much is that worth for you? And if I'm spending so much money on each project that I need to make no less than $200 a ticket, and that's only if I sell out, I'm in trouble. Because I'm not spending $200, and you're never going to sell out. It's rare you become Hamilton or Wicked or whatever. So that's a rare thing. You can't count on that. So that's where you make yourself happy. Oh my God, what a surprise! But you have to plan for the lack of audience. And again, now it comes back. What do? We beg the government. We beg foundations. We beg corporations. We beg people who are already giving us $40 to give us more. That doesn't feel right to me, does it? So we have, it is a business, right? We've acknowledged that. So we want to both we have a business that creates, that creates entertainment and art that hopefully adds to our lives and makes them better. If something we're putting on doesn't do that, I mean, even Spamalot is a hoot. So it added to my life. I walked out of there laughing. I was happy. And they can't even make money on Broadway. Right?
Because they need, I mean, they're setting up a, arguably short-term production company. They've got a team of people that are only working if this thing is selling.
Well, but then again, look at all the nonprofits. All they do, the only way they survive is by going into debt or by begging people for money. That to me is failure. And, and we have some very successful nonprofits. I guess we should be looking at the example in Louisville, the example at the Guthrie in Minneapolis, La Jolla. La Jolla, though, is just a factory for Broadway shows. And believe me, I'm not saying anything about La Jolla. They do great work. But these are successful companies that have a lot of money, and they still beg for donations.
Yeah.
Right? The New York Shakespeare Festival, they had a chorus line, they had Hamilton, and Hell's Kitchen, Alicia Keys' new musical, is going to Broadway. And they still beg, and let me use that word in large capital letters, beg people to send them more money. Something's wrong. Oh, by the way, let's add to what's wrong with the public theater. And I'm angry at them. They only pay $1 a year rent for a building that houses 6 theaters. Come on.
Wow. That's like
$1 a year. So they can't claim, oh my God, we have this overhead mortgage and we have this, and they're begging us for money?
They're like, Shakespeare at the Park isn't free.
No, it's not. You have to be a big donor.
We had to renovate the theater, so.
Yeah. Well, good for them. Nothing wrong with that. Theaters, need renovation, but anyway.
We also have to ask ourselves: Are we producing what we think the community wants to see, or would be interested in, or are we producing what a donor is willing to fund?
Both. And a donor can influence what somebody does. And certainly if you're in a small town, without naming any particular one, there are towns, again, when I was younger, that would not allow Hair, which was a major hit on Broadway, to even go into one of their theaters because they heard it had nudity in it. They won't allow Rent because of its language and because of its topics. And these are major, major hits. So do you tell your community the lowest denominator, which is you're going to ban all the books, you're going to ban all the theater, anything you don't like, we're not allowed to bring here? Or do you say, no, we are, you don't have to buy a ticket, but here we are, we're bringing the best theater we can and mixing it in. You come to My Fair Lady, the other people come to Rent. What's the big deal? And yet, that doesn't. So are we supposed to kowtow to the community? Are we supposed to include them? What if they don't show up either way? And that happens. The people who ban books don't read them themselves. So what do we even care about them? Just say those of us who want to read, those of us who want to see the plays, those of us who are willing to pay for tickets, we're the ones you should be catering to.
That's true. I always had, and this isn't a new idea either, but I remembered, in the early days of dreaming of what the future of my theater company would be. I always said, I was like, I want the whole lobby to be a fully functioning, coffee house. Mm-hmm. It's always open, even if we don't have a show, but it's always open so that there's something like supporting the building and isn't necessarily requiring us to, beg so aggressively. Because also the idea, when you think about, what is it? CSC.
Yeah.
Right?
Classic Stage Company has a coffee shop in front of it. Right?
Right. And you have to walk through this bustling coffee shop to get to the box office, which is in the back, like, oh, bathrooms are over there.
But another thing, there's walking traffic. And that's another thing. Location. Broadway has what they call prime theaters and secondary theaters. That is internally part of the discussion. 44th Street and 45th Street are the prime locations. If the theater owners believe your show is going to be a hit and bring in large ticket sales, which means they get a large rent from the percentage of the ticket sales, they're going to put you in a theater on 44th and 45th. If they have less confidence in your show, they will put you in a theater that's further away from the core of Broadway. And they don't tell the producers this. Only those who have worked on the inside know that this is a discussion every minute. They have flagship theaters. By the way, Hell's Kitchen is going into the Schubert Theater, which is their flagship. Spamalot went into the St. James, which was Drew Jamson's flagship theater, and that's closing. Hell's Kitchen had Some Like It Hot. They thought that show was going to run for years, and instead it closed in, 6 months? So being in the prime location doesn't guarantee you anything, but it does help because people from one theater walk past the other theaters. They see what's there. Very few people who go to the theater watch YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I know you keep arguing for this. The statistics, and I've read this just as recently as this week, the people who get excited by Instagram and TikTok shows don't buy tickets. They do know about them, but they don't buy the tickets. So the marketing people say we should have TikTok and Instagram. We should have it, but we can't spend a big part of our budget on it.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. The reason I'm saying we should have a presence there is because everybody else has a presence there.
Right.
And it's also more affordable to be there. Like, even if you post something like, for example, like, I'll create an event for a show, and then if I want to, I can boost it. I can put ad money behind it, so that way it shows up in everybody's feeds, on the platforms. And so at least that way there are impressions, because like what we're struggling with is, our paper of record is arguably worthless. It's behind a paywall digitally, and who subscribes? And if you only maybe you only subscribe to the Sunday edition, and so if you're not in the Sunday edition, then what was the point of being involved in the paper at all?
Except that is the audience that buys tickets. So again, it's a big argument, but for the same reason why these algorithms, every time I happen to go on Wayfair to look at a piece of furniture that looked interesting, even though I'm not buying any furniture, and all of a sudden I open Facebook and there are 20 ads for Wayfair that showed up in my feed. It automatically goes there. So that's, to me, an obnoxious problem. Right?
Their April Fools should have been, now with theater tickets.
Yeah, really.
Wayfair, you get just what I need.
It drives me crazy. At the same point, you just ignore it. But that's what we do with everything anyway. So, and by the way, creating TikTok videos for those of us of a certain age, it's a lot harder than it looks. Because I will tell you, I just recently started looking at TikTok videos as a part of my educational process. If I stay on a TikTok video longer than 2 seconds, they are boring.
Yeah.
And yet I found myself on there for a full minute, waiting for anything to interest me. And so I see how it's addictive.
Yeah.
Because you keep waiting. There's got to be something here.
And you're like, what about this one? What about this next one?
And I go, no, I really don't like the way that person looks. Oh, no, that's just an ad. Oh, no.
It has so many views. What am I missing?
I don't even bother with that yet. And of course, there are two things that'll get my attention all the time. An elephant, a chimpanzee, and a naked body. Those three things, I'll stop for a second. But how do
That's every platform.
There you go. How do I advertise Kimberly Akimbo on Broadway with any one of those three?
It's the same gimmick that we used to employ in the Fringe. Nudity. Now that I have your attention.
That's right. Absolutely. The problem is then you have to have someone be nude. Of course, the great part about Broadway is there are gorgeous people on it.
Yeah.
Right? And I will say that even the ugly ones are pretty.
I always said I wanted to write a play where the title is, "This show contains immediate nudity." Immediate.
Well, this is also factual. When Hair first opened on Broadway in I think it was 67, could have been 68, there was nudity at the end of Act 1. And people would walk in a huff. I'm going to hate this. I don't know why we're seeing this. How dare they put nudity on stage? And they would walk out of the show, but they all waited until after the nude scene. It was, they all left the theater, but the only ones who left waited till after that scene.
Yeah, I saw it.
That's it. There was nothing to see.
And I walked out.
It's in the dark and it's under a big carpet. What's the big deal? But then they could tell their friends. I was disgusted and I walked out.
Especially with Hair. It's all carpet.
Yes.
Bazinga.
Yeah.
Listen, so it's our 50th episode, right? And the 50th anniversary is gold.
There you go.
So
So is that our subtitle? Our
So
working title?
our working title is no. Our rejected title is Where's Our Gold Watches?
Nah, that's 25.
Yeah. So we should do something. We are kind of doing something. Currently, I'm in Philadelphia. Mitch is in New York. But on Friday, we will be together in New York. We're going to see Hell's Kitchen.
Yay!
Yay!
And we want, and you know, in to make it personal, Alicia Keys' mother has worked with my organization, The Farm. She was an actress in a musical that we're working on. Both she and her daughter Alicia Keys used to live in my building.
Live in your building, yeah.
So, and by the way, Hell's Kitchen is the name of our neighborhood, and the musical takes place in my building.
Does it go down to the all-purpose room?
We haven't seen it until this weekend.
We haven't seen it yet. We're going to be like, this looks just like your building.
That's right. I'm going to say, how come her apartment was twice the size of mine?
You're like, which tower is this? Will there be a scene that takes place in the food emporium?
There you go. I wonder if it existed back then. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a wonderful building, and we probably should advertise Manhattan Plaza. Except you can't get in. The waiting list is locked up. But it's two 46-story towers, and in between is a parkland for kids, a supermarket, a tennis court, swimming pool, a complete gymnasium, parking garage, including for EVs. They have free rehearsal studios for everyone who lives here, and 80% of the building is required to work in the arts. They must prove that they are entertainment people. It used to be higher. The key to this is because people in the arts, and actually this is relevant to our discussion here. How do you like that? Because people in the arts have good years and bad years. They have come up with a system, and it's unique. I don't believe there's any other facility in all of the 5 boroughs of New York where every year they reanalyze your income and change your rent based on it and based on your projection for the next year. If you know you're going to be on tour with a major Broadway show, you know what next year's income may be. They will adjust your rent based on that. If all of a sudden you had one of those years you were on unemployment the whole year, your rent goes down. And the idea is not that, and by the way, the building owners who are not government, this is a private institution, private real estate owners, they still make a profit. So the building is not in trouble, has wonderful security. So the question, here I am advertising something that's not available. It did take me 11 years on a waiting list to get into this building, by the way.
It's crazy, but also amazing.
I wish for the idea of affordable housing, they use this model, because those people who can afford the full rent should pay it. And when you have years where you can't, that's how it becomes affordable.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden you started out poor and you get this great job, why shouldn't you be paying full rent?
And it also puts you in that mindset of like the pay your fair share thing. It's
That's
like,
right.
if you're doing well enough, pay your fair share. And if you're not, like, this is why this is justified, because when things aren't doing so well for you, you're going to be able to benefit from the same, program that someone else who was struggling last year was able to benefit from. And you're going to be grateful for it, because when you do get good work, everybody does it. It's like when you make more money, like, you want to be able to do the things you couldn't do. And it's not really like, oh, now I'm going on that long vacation. It's really like, here's the things I needed I wasn't able to deal with, and now I can deal with them, so I'm going to, and I just feel it's just more peace of mind. I just feel better about being able to do it.
The peace of mind is the right phrase.
Yeah.
Now, let me throw out, though, the notion that maybe this is the model for how to fund theater. That the smaller theaters, or the theaters that are not doing as well at a particular moment. And by the way, let's be clear, the people paying full rent in the building are not necessarily subsidizing the others.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it balances out, that they have a model that says we don't expect everyone to be making the same amount. And so the building's income is an average. And there is some government subsidy, I believe, to the building, but I don't understand that. That's not shared with us. So again, maybe that's a way to say we take commercial theater on Broadway. Maybe we take television and film. Maybe we put all this together, throw it into a pot, and say, how do we survive? What's the base level that allows our institutions that are going to hire our artists to create new work? What is that base level? How do we have that?
So we basically need a savior outside of this community to keep us, to sustain us.
You're interpreting it, and I wish that weren't the case. But at the moment, yeah.
So we need a corporate sugar daddy.
Now, see, here we go again. I'm talking about keeping it within the industry. We stop begging people. We charge them what a ticket might cost, and if you're really willing to spend $200 for your 4-year-old to see Lion King, that's obviously most of the people I know can't afford that.
Yeah.
So, but if that's what you think, and if that's what Disney expects, that's what they expect.
The other point I wanted to make is all the other things we add to make it easier for people to come join us in the theater. Like, there are a lot of organizations who have a sort of daycare operation. And it's like, so now you're a daycare facility? Like, you're supposed to be a theater company.
Right.
So now you have a daycare. It's even the same thing as, like, if your theater lobby has a whole ass coffee shop in it. Now, there's a totally different business that's in there with you. Well, in theory, if you have this building, it is a great idea to have a couple of other, residents in the building.
But if you don't have walking traffic, then who's coming?
No one's going to.
And look at Capital One Bank is advertising they have a coffee shop in their bank, and you can bank while you're having your coffee at the table. Come on!
It's not a bank. It's a coffee shop.
Well, you can
with ATMs and
right.
People.
Absolutely. Well, at least they know they can get paid for the coffee. They go to the ATM.
That's funny because that is my bank, and I never go to that. I never go to the cafe.
I've never been inside one either. I don't go into the bank.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, we do need a savior. And you know what? Here's the thing. If we had some genius who's on Shark Tank, or any investor out there working the stock market who, as a hobby, is going to say, I think there's a better way to run theater. Now, you don't have to say everybody in the entire country has to agree with you, but maybe we start with 3 or 4 nonprofits and we sit down together, and I'm not smart enough to know how to do this, but maybe there is a business person who can take some of the ideas we're talking about, look at what happens in England. And by the way, I believe England its theater will only survive if the government goes back to subsidizing. So that's something in America I don't think we'll ever see. We do have, the government does give money to some major nonprofits. That's nice. Foundations do give some money. They just they're going to be upset that I didn't use their name. 3 theater companies here in New York just got $10 million each and that's the total that the Foundation gave out from
That
this corporation.
59 East 59?
That's one of them.
Yeah.
And God bless them. Now, it's what they do with that money that becomes of interest. And my thing is, you have an endowment that means you can stay alive forever. Instead, I think they're allowing people to rent their theater for free.
Yes.
And so there you go. In 3 years, they're out of all $10 million again. It's like, I don't get it. That's me. I apologize.
I hope they're putting some of it. I hope they're putting some of it away.
And you don't know if the requirement is that they use it all in the next 2 or 3 years, right? You don't know what they're stuck with.
Even if they do, they should put it somewhere where it could accrue.
I personally agree.
I'm sure they know how to do this. It's like you don't just put $10 million in a safe in your office. That money is making money as we speak.
And as a final note, though, I will say a number of years ago I had the pleasure of visiting a theater company in Oklahoma. Their facilities were magnificent. And you cannot even imagine when I say their facilities are amazing, magnificent. I'm talking about the sound from their lighting system from fluorescent lights was directed outside the theater and rehearsal rooms into a private room for sound of lighting, so that there was perfect acoustics left in every room. That's how much money. So I asked them, how do you afford this? And the answer was, Mitch, when you get $10,000 as a donation given to a nonprofit theater company in New York City, we get $250,000. We're oil. And I think that's an important thing when we're talking about neighborhoods and communities.
Yeah.
The money and the support may be out there.
We're just all in the same place trying to get it.
Right. And we're not talking to each other. We're not sharing. And we are a sharing community, but the business people seem to think it's their own personal ego if they fail. It's their own personal ego at stake. If they, when they succeed, they're going to be able to take the credit. There's something we're missing. I don't know if it's communication, if that's enough. I don't know if, I don't know. I mean, I'm more than happy to admit that. But we had a good discussion.
Yeah. Happy 50th, Mitch.
Happy 50th, Darnell. It's been a good run. Let's keep it going.
It has been. Thank you, listeners, for hearing a piece of our minds for 50 episodes. We are very much in this community, and so we've always had so much to say and, to think about as well. And I think these conversations also fuel everything that we do, whether we're play development with the farm or, I'm helping continue the legacy that is Theater Exile, and in general, just supporting our communities in New York and Philadelphia. And that really is the business. So thank you for listening, and tell your friends. I have always said theater is more fun with a +1. And so listen to our shows with a friend. Take it with you. That's the whole point of podcasts. You can take it anywhere. But do your laundry. A lot of people love to do their laundry while they're listening. But thank you for listening. And there's more to come. We might even move into YouTube or something. You might be able to see our faces soon. We'll see.
Now you're scaring me and probably our audience.
We'll see. I've been quietly upgrading our systems so that we can make this happen with ease.
And let me throw in at the end the farm, which both Darnell and I work on, which helps playwrights. We have a new website. It's called We Grow Theater, spelled THEATER.com. WeGrowTheater.com. check it out. At least find out what we're working on.
Yeah, we've got a great lookbook there. There's photos of past readings and the many artists that have worked with us over the years. And it's a great operation. And we're just trying to find homes for these great pieces of work. We're so partial to them because we've helped them get to where they are today. And this idea spawned before the pandemic, and it has soldiered through it all too, with a great group of people who are passionate and from various areas of the business, and all volunteer. We are all volunteer, which is great too, because we're passionate about it. So give it a look. We Grow Theater with ER.com. And that's the business. That's the business of theater, a working title. I'm Darnell Radford.
I'm Mitch Weiss.
And we will see you at the theater.
Yay, and Darnell and I see each other at the theater.
And I'll see you at the theater on Friday.
I'll see you at the theater. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.